my mouth just watered that way. It's squishy. That is just 10 out of 10. 100 out of 10. 1,000 out of 10. This is a bun that does everything. And today I'm going to teach you how to steal this recipe. I'm Paola Velez. I'm Webby and Emmy nominated, and you still don't know who I am. But today we're going to be making the fluffiest Tangzhong Plantain Brioche that you have ever made in your own home. I promise you that this is going to be better than any bakery you've ever had. Brioche has a reputation for being difficult. It's not. You just haven't been taught the right way to make it. For this recipe, we're going to need some flour, yeast, butter, salt, molasses, milk powder, a little bit of granulated sugar, milk, and eggs. And then we'll touch on our beautiful guava butter later on. The really fun thing about plantains is that you can make it sweet or savory with this recipe. You can push it all the way into making one of my plantain sticky buns, or you can make some rolls like we're making today. And right now I'm using some frozen plantains, but you can actually buy super ripe plantains from your grocery store, or you can buy green plantains and put them in a paper bag and leave them underneath your sink for a week or so until the skin really gets dark and kind of ripe. So for this step, all we're going to need is some all-purpose flour and some water. You already know the drill. If you want me to get a new induction burner, like, follow, subscribe, help me. Help me so I can have a new one, because this one might burn my house down. As always, safety first. Got some gloves here. I'm going to start off with our flour. And now our water. And this portion of the recipe is the most important part. It's our Tangzhong, and this is going to give our dough a head start. The Tangzhong gets cooked down and it becomes very starchy, almost like a roux. Not the same thing, but almost. And what it does is that it absorbs extra moisture and makes sure that you don't overhydrate or underhydrate your dough. It also opens up your crumb and gives you the ability to do a less enriched dough than a typical brioche. With this technique, you're going to be able to really get a lot of mileage from your dough. And you're not going to have a lot of scary pain points. And pre-gelatinization here is going to make sure that we absorb all of that moisture that we're going to be adding in later. And Tangzhong is a very popular technique that's used throughout all of Asia with origins from Japan. And you can start to see that your dough is starting to gelatinize at the bottom of our pot. What we're going to do is we're going to keep scraping. Think of this as almost making like pot au choux, or like I said before, a very, very thick gelatinous roux. It's not the same thing. I know that some people call it water roux, but it's not the same. But if you do know how to make a roux, you can make this. If you make a mean gumbo, you can make now a mean plantain bun. And I'm going to keep working it with residual heat now, just to really make sure that all of that moisture is incorporated here. And one thing I like to do is re-weigh, just to make sure I know exactly what ratios I'm working with. So now I'm going to take my plantains out of the oven, and they're not ready yet, but I do want to test to see if they're soft enough to be flipped. So I am going to start flipping them, and of course I'm a chef, so I have a tong, but you could just use a fork. So now what we're going to do is we're going to lightly, very gently warm this up to bring it up to our body temperature. I'm doing like 30 seconds. I did 15 seconds in the microwave, and it's now at my body temperature, which is like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a little packet of instant yeast. And now we're going to pour in our sugar. Then we're going to go in with our slightly warmed milk. And what we're doing here is called blooming. Without this blooming process, we actually won't wake up the yeast. The yeast needs to wake up and eat, so that's waking it up with some of the warmth and then feeding it with some sugar. So our beautiful plantains are out of the oven, and I'm going to put them to the side so that they can cool down enough so that I can cut them. And I like to give this a little stir to really incentivize that yeast. So while our yeast proofs to the side, we are going to cut up our sweet plantains now. And even the ones that are kind of like burnt and kind of crispy, you want those because that's gonna give you a lot of flavor from the Maillard reaction. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our sweet plantain and we're gonna cut down. And we're gonna make little pieces. And they don't have to be perfect because we're gonna go back and we're gonna try to mince this as much as we can. Not too much so that it dissolves in the dough, but enough so that there's just like slight hints, like flecks of plantains throughout the dough. And like before, using plantain in this recipe is going to provide a lot of starchiness, but also it's going to provide a little bit more sweetness to really help that yeast bloom. And as you can see now, our yeast has bloomed. It's formed like this almost like fluffy layer on top. That means that it's burping, it's eating, it's awake, it's alive, and we are ready for liftoff. And for this dough, we're gonna use a dough hook. This is gonna help hook it and kind of keep mixing it gently. A paddle wouldn't work here, and a whisk would definitely not work here. So yes, we're gonna try to get the mixer to do all of the hard work. And what's really cool about a mixer is that it was invented by a black man. So you already know it's popping. In this recipe, we are going to be using bread flour instead of all-purpose flour. And it's really important that you do use bread flour because we aren't using that much butter. So we really want to make sure that our dough has a lot of structure. And high gluten flour are like the support beams of a house for your dough. We're gonna add our flour on top. Then we're gonna add our Tangzhong. We're also gonna be adding some milk powder. Our plantains, and we didn't cut it all into like a paste because the mixer is going to mash it up for us. Now lastly, we're going to add some salt, and we always want to add this last before we add any eggs. We never want to add it first and having it come in contact with the yeast because salt is a yeast killer. Salt will 86 your yeast faster than you can say, hello, good morning, ¿cómo está? To your neighbor. We're adding our bowl to our mixer and our paddle attachment. Make sure it's locked in. We lock it in on this side and then we start it off on speed 1. And while the dough is mixing, I'm gonna crack 2 of my eggs to start. We're gonna give it a little assist by pushing down the sides that have come up and are still dry and haven't made contact with the middle of the bowl. In there, turn off your mixer and go ham. Go into the sides, go into the bottom, and just bring everything that's in the bottom to the top so that it can get incorporated. And for the most part, some of your mixers aren't built for mixing intense doughs or really fortified doughs, so I would make sure that I would stay between 2, 3, or 4, never kicking it up higher than that because it can impact your gears. So now all of the dough has come together. I don't see any more flour. I'm going to start adding my eggs. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to break apart the yolks. And what we're going to do is we're going to check it now because we still have to add our butter. And our butter is what's really going to make it come together. But I want to check to make sure that there aren't any pockets of dough or the Tangzhong kind of lingering around. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this down. And then I'm going to cut them into little bite-sized pieces. And the butter is soft, but it's not too soft that it's just like melting all over the place. So we're going to add a few pieces at a time. Sometimes I like to mush them. And what's going to happen is that the dough is going to start letting out some heat because of all the exertion that it's doing, all of the building and all of the eating that the yeast is actively doing right now. Some of this butter plus the friction is going to start to integrate into the dough. And this is where a lot of brioche fails because people try to rush this step a little bit and the butter really doesn't integrate correctly. If I had smell-o-vision right now, I would be sharing it with you because it smells so delightful. It's like caramelized, a little bit of like sweetness from the plantain, and then all that butter is really activating. And it's okay if you see some little bits and bobs of butter still. That means that the dough is still working on incorporating it. And if you're really nervous about integrating butter when you're making a brioche or any type of bread that takes some enriching or butter, I would say cut the pieces even smaller. That way that it really has no chance against the machine and you won't miss a pocket of butter. I'm starting to see that the dough is pulling from the sides and the butter is almost no longer visible. I see little pockets here and there, but a lot of the dough has already kind of like sucked it up and it's become glossy and stretchy as well, which means that we have a good result. What we're going to keep doing though is we're going to keep building that gluten. We're going to activate the gluten strands. We're going to make it come to the side of the dough, peel off, and it's almost like somebody is stretching mozzarella. Just and don't be afraid if your dough looks a little wet. Don't add extra flour. This ratio, I promise you it works. We're gonna let the gluten strands really toughen up, and then we're also gonna let the Tangzhong absorb all the moisture that is lingering. All that moisture, it's gonna be sucking it all up. And now that our dough is a little smoother, it has less friction, it is coming off of the sides easier, I'm gonna kick it up to a higher speed because the machine's gonna be able to handle it just a little bit for what we need. So now our dough is nice and beautiful, and what we're going to do is we're gonna take off our dough hook. We're going to remove our bowl, and we're going to put our mixers to the side. And using a spatula or a bowl scraper, you're going to grab all of those little bits of extra dough that are hanging out on your hook. The dough is nice and stretchy, and what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we scrape the sides of our bowl. We want to scrape all of that and integrate it with our big dough, but also we're going to go into the bottom of our bowl and really scrape in. You could already see that it's getting shiny, it's nice and really stretchy. And what we're going to do is we're going to give this a few wraparounds, but already you can see that there is no dough sticking. That means that we've done a good job. What I like to do is I like to take a little test to make sure that I have done a good job. And what I do is I stretch it out to see if I've achieved window pane. And I have. That means that our dough is done, and what we're going to do now is we're going to let this rest at room temperature for an hour to an hour and a half so that that yeast really has time to kind of billow up. So now we're going to make our guava butter, and this one's easy because all we need is some guava paste, some butter that's soft, salt, and some citric acid. So now we're going to make our guava butter. And between us, friends, I forgot that I had this clear bowl. We could have made the dough in a clear bowl so you could see what I was doing, but here we are making guava butter instead. So first we're going to go in and put our guava paste into our bowl. And using the paddle attachment, we're going to activate our sweet, sweet, delicious guava. What I'm doing is I'm just kind of fluffing it up so that it's easier to integrate with the butter. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. You can already see it hanging off the bowl, but I'm just going to make sure that everything is kind of integrated and beautiful. It smells so good. I do see a little clump here, so I'm going to turn the mixer back on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a stick of butter at a time. We're going to add our second stick. And if you want to make a larger batch of this, that's okay. Just double the recipe. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to scrape everything that I can see that is guava that hasn't fully integrated with butter. Especially all that bottom of the bowl. Also, or if you see butter that you haven't integrated with the guava, that too needs a little bit of TLC. So now we're going to add some salt. And we're going to add a little pinch of citric acid to really bring out that guava flavor. Not too much though. So here we have our beautiful guava butter that's almost peachy in color, and it's so cute, so nice, so spring. Or maybe summer, I don't know. Either way, the flavors are bomb.com. What I did there was add some flaky sea salt at the beginning, but then I'm also adding some kosher salt to really have that salt flavor resonate throughout. I'm going to put our butter back into our little bowl here. Nice and peachy, like I said before. So cute! So our dough has doubled in size. You can see that it's nice and doubled in size, and what we're going to do is we're going to punch it down. So we're going to go ahead and scrape down the sides of the bowl. So what I do is I try to weigh it out to the weight that I think is best. And for this, 70 grams will give me roughly around 16 pieces of dough. Then once I have my 70 grams, I just lay it out like so, and I kind of like fold it in onto itself just to give it more tension. And then I roll it until it's nice and taut in the surface. So I'm going to cue the editor to do a fast time lapse so that you don't have to watch me roll these. And when you're rolling, you're going to grab your hand and make a C, and you're going to use the bottom 2 fingers and you're going to push forward and then push with your thumb. And that's going to give you that tight surface. This is a great recipe because this is all the cleanup that you're going to have to do. So now that I've rolled everything out and shaped them, I'm actually going to make sure that I kind of portion out where my dough should go. So I have to kind of position them in a way that makes sense for them. Perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover these up and I'm going to let them rest for at least 20 minutes to 30 minutes. I have my oven preheating, ready to go. So once these bad boys are ready, we're going to brush them lightly with a little bit of egg wash, and then we're popping them in the oven. To uncover this. So these guys are ready. When you press it down, it stays indented. We're going to do a little egg wash. And I'm going to mix it until I feel like the yolks have kind of dissipated in the whites. We're going to garnish it with a little bit of salt on top. Not too much though. I'm going to brush it. Get it all the way down to the sides. And this is going to give it its nice shine. Granted, bread with the Tangzhong is going to brown just a little bit faster than a normal brioche. And with plantain in it, it's going to brown even faster. You just want to make sure that you're paying attention to it while it bakes in the oven so that they don't become too overcooked. There you have your beautiful buns, nice and glazed. We're going to pop these in the oven, preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to bake them for 15 minutes, give or take, and we're going to check them after that. You have your beautiful plantain buns. They're so soft and fluffy, but it has like a really nice outside. You can see that it's beautiful and fluffy and pillowy, and it smells amazing. Oh my god, I don't know why my mouth just watered that way. It's squishy. That is just 10 out of 10. 100 out of 10. 1,000 out of 10. Okay, let's try it. It's pretty hot. Oh yeah, you can taste some of that sweetness from the plantain. There's a little bit of bitterness from the molasses. Oh my god. This is good. This feels like bread that you would get at like a Michelin Starred restaurant. Not that I'm, but literally. Now you can make Michelin Starred restaurant bread at home. So we're going to take some of our beautiful brioche. I'm going to grab some of that guava butter. Remember, it's like sweet and tropical, but a little bit of tang because of the citric acid and all of that saltiness from the sea salt. Okay, season over. I can't top this. So there you have it, folks. Your beautiful Tangzhong plantain buns. It is just the softest, the most fluffiest, delightful, delicious, nutritious bread that you've ever made in your kitchen. I hope you enjoy eating this as much as I enjoyed making this recipe for you. Thanks again for tuning in to Steal This Recipe. Remember, It's always welcome to steal my recipes and make them your own. This bread can be savory or sweet. You can use it in a ton of applications, not just as a side for your dinner or a little snack. And here's the kicker, you don't actually have to make guava butter. You can make passion fruit butter, miso butter. You can make any butter that you want to accompany these beautiful plantain buns. The full recipe is available on Substack. Thanks for watching. Bye!